Peace and blessings, YouTube family. Hope everyone has had a phenomenal day today. It's late in the evening, but something came across my desk today, and I most certainly wanted to share with each of you. Of course, the theme that we've discussed this entire week has been about self care for the caregiver, right? For that family caregiver, for that family member providing elder care for their loved ones. And we began the entire series in terms of just talking about the importance of self-care, the importance of taking time, taking a moment to be able to find a slither of time, whether that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is that you can carve out in your busy day to give back to yourself, right? Because in terms of all the responsibilities and all of the heavy weight that rests on your shoulders, the reality is if you don't find a way to recharge, it's just not going to be sustainable. And we all understand that and we all know that, but it's just oftentimes it's extremely difficult to be able to do the very thing that we know we need to do, the very thing that we know is certainly healthy for us as well. And so, the article that came across my desk today was published October the 4th, 2024 by looks like a Miss Carrie Myers. I don't know if I actually should have given her name, but in any event, this is Healthy Lifestyle. And this appeared to be peer reviewed by another professional in the field, and really it was astounding to me, family, simply because of the conversation that we've been having as it relates to our self care. And what I loved about this article when it came across, I'm gonna just give you the title of it. If you want to pull it up and research it yourself, feel free to do so. But it says the number one habit to start now to reduce your dementia risk. That's the title, right? That's the title of this article. And it says here the changes in the brain begin at least 20 years before symptoms show up. Start this habit now to reduce your risk. And the very first paragraph was just extremely astounding because it talked about, well, disease prevention often focuses on heart diseases and cancer. Brain health seems to be less talked about. Perhaps this is because heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States, and cancer ranks second according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. But get this, seventh place, though, is Alzheimer's disease, a type of dementia, right? And so, as we extend this conversation, of course, I wanted to begin this series in terms of talking about each of you, right? In terms of the ones who are providing the care, the ones who are having to juggle between, multiple generations. We're part of that sandwich generation. Remember, we talked about that in terms of, well, we got a younger generation that we're taking care of in terms of our kids. And then we have this older generation, that in terms of our families, our parents, our grandparents, that sort of a thing. And so there we are in between these two pendulums, right? These two generations of carrying out the responsibility of taking care of here in terms of, particularly if you got children that are still in school, all of the responsibilities that goes along with that. And then now you have your parents and your grandparents, or maybe, your uncle, the aunts, whomever those elders are, that you have to now juggle, and you're juggling between, right? And so you're spinning plates all the way around you, right? And so as we talk about that in terms of the level of stress that applies upon you, the level of strain, the level of drain that it places upon each and every last one of us, because the reality is what we're doing out of love. And so, in terms of, if we have jobs, we got careers, we got businesses, none of that can actually afford to take a back seat. So we have to put that in the mix as well, right? And so it has to take a toll somewhere. I mean, the reality is we're only human beings, regardless of how great we feel we are. We give all of our, we speak all of the positive slogans that we possibly can to keep ourselves motivated and excited to get through the day. But the reality is we're only human beings, right? And so that means we need to rest, we need to eat, we need to find some sense of enjoyment. The whole idea of Maslow's law, right, still applies for us as well, even though here we are being the ones that's giving and putting out in terms of our time and all of the things that we have to do. So once again, there's a toll that there's an expense that's being paid. And so with that, oftentimes that expense is our mental care, our mental health. And so that's why this article was so phenomenal to me when it came across my desk. It talked about nearly 7 million people in the U.S. say Alzheimer's is affecting. Actually, let me just read it. It says dementia is a general term for declining memory, reasoning, or other thinking skills, whereas Alzheimer's disease is a specific brain disease that accounts for the majority of dementia cases, affecting nearly 7 million people in the US. This is according to the Alzheimer's Association. Okay. And so that's a phenomenal fact, right? But what's even more intriguing about that is this is what we've been talking about all week. We've been talking all week about of finding ways, developing ways to take care of ourselves. And although we didn't specify it in terms of to prevent this, but this is what this article is talking about, because here we go. The number one habit to start now to reduce your risk of dementia, get this, exercise. Exercise, according to this article. Here it is right here. I'm not making this up. I mean, this is literally here we are. Exercise is the number one habit to start now if you're not already doing it regularly. Let me read that again. Exercise is the number one habit to start now if you're not already doing it regularly. There are so many benefits to moving your body, including strengthening your heart, lungs, and muscles, improving your mood, and reducing your risk of diseases like diabetes and cancer. As far as your brain is concerned, exercise boosts blood flow to your brain, which may be one reason it reduces your risk of dementia, suggests one study. So family, I just want to tell you, I said to you, not knowing anything about this, I just received this today. Today, I think is October the 6th, I think. This was published October the 4th. I only received it today. And if you recall, if you go back and look at some of the previous conversations that we had, some of the previous episodes, I told you, for me, technically my day starts anywhere between, 4 or 5 o'clock in terms of when I actually wake. About 6 o'clock is the time I'm up, and the very first thing I do is go into exercise, and then I blend that in terms of my meditation, right? And I mentioned to you that for me is a major, 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 major source to help me get through the day. That's an extremely major, major source to keep me, somewhat sane, right? To keep me, somewhat balanced, to be able to juggle all of the different degrees of stress, because it's not just stress, right? I mean, that stress is actually just a normal phase and function of life, but it's the different degrees of stress, right? And throughout the day, in terms of all of the different things that come about that you have to troubleshoot and overcome and work through. And so for me, anytime sometimes my meditations get deeper or longer, and I'm not able to actually get a physical exercise in, right? I can still feel it, right? I feel a difference. Even though that meditation may have been phenomenal, I still feel a difference. Now, if there's ever a day that comes about and I don't get either in, I don't get the meditation, nor do I get the exercise in, forget about it. It's my entire day I'm slogging it all day. I'm literally, it's as if it's like I'm carrying 4 or 5 different people on my shoulders. I am literally dragging all single day, right? But I can attest to you personally that exercise is an absolute phenomenal strategy in terms of helping your mental being, your mental self, get better aligned with your physical self and with your spiritual self. And here's a study that just dropped on my desk that basically highlights that very single fact. And they even went any further, right? Because as I said to you, this is the doctor's corner, right? So I'm not just giving you things off the hip. What I provide to you, will be, scientific data that you can go back yourself and research and make sure that it's true, so that you can maybe decide if it's for you or not, right? But this is not a channel where we'll just throw out anything that just sounds good. This is a channel that will be based off of factual data to the best of the ability in terms of the research that I have, right? And so it says here they conducted a study amongst 70 men and women between the ages of 55 and 80 with diagnosed mild memory loss. Okay. The participants were randomly assigned to one of two groups for an entire year. One group completed regular stretching sessions, and the other group performed 4 to 5 weekly exercise sessions, 2 of which were high intensity, each lasting 30 to 40 minutes. The exercise group progressed over the year-long study period, starting with 3 weekly sessions for 25 to 30 minutes. After a year, those in the exercise group had less stiffness in the blood vessels. Let me read it again. After a year, those in the exercise group had less stiffness in the blood vessels in their necks and more blood flow to their brains. Those in the stretching only group didn't experience similar beneficial changes. So let's see here. Looks like Dr. Cullum, seems to be a psychiatrist at the University of Texas, Southwestern Medical Center, says there is still a lot we don't know about the effects of exercise on cognitive decline later in life. Mild cognitive impairment and dementia are likely to be influenced by a complex interplay of many factors, and we think that, at least for some people, exercise is one of those factors. So I just wanted to share that with you, family. This is a pretty intriguing. It's an extremely intriguing article. I felt, and so with that. Let's see, they got here. Other studies have also linked physical activity to a healthier brain. For example, a study review found that physical activity was associated with a 20% lower incidence of all-cause dementia and a 14% reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease. And another review found a small but significant link between higher levels of physical activity and better cognition later in life. So, family, I just got to tell you, listen to me, that I'm greatly encouraged by that, right? I'm as someone who's already practicing, in terms of exercising, and I know it's certainly for me. I can only speak for me. For me, it is certainly an extremely beneficial aspect for me in my life. I just can't even, I can't fathom going through what I go through on a day-to-day basis without starting my day with the level of exercise. And then to be able to read this report and to be able to see, several studies that they conducted that comes back and support the theory in terms of the benefits of exercise on our health. You got to understand now, this is this we can turn this directly to us, because when we are heavily stressed the way that we are, when we are in terms of balancing so many different layers of responsibilities, right? And we know that, overall, in terms of what stress does to the body, what stress does to the brain, what stress does to the heart, we know the detrimental effects of that, right? And that was the point and purpose of this channel in terms of coming out and as this first series specifically, in terms of talking about, self-care for the caregiver, right? That the first phase of caregiving has to be to you, simply because without that being the first quadrant, all the other quadrants are now they're not sustainable. I mean, they are at risk of collapsing. And so we've discussed this entire week. We discussed in terms of talking about different ways of finding a way, different ways and methods and techniques that we could potentially use, where we could find a way to break away and give to ourselves so that we can recharge. Remember that word, recharge, right? And so here's a report that for any of you that's on here that think everything that I was saying was just subjective, of course a lot of it was, right? Because I'm one of you. It's right. I'm not somebody who don't know what you're going through. I'm in it. I'm one of you. I'm dealing with it every single day in, day out, 24/7, right? And so yeah, I was sharing things that have helped me. I was sharing some things that I found personally beneficial to me. But here's something even greater, because here's a report. Here's a report right here, dated October the 4th, 2024, that basically is all over what we've discussed the past few days. And so when I saw it, I'm telling you, I was blown away with it. I thought it was absolutely, the timing of it, I felt, was just impeccable and a complete blessing for sure for all of us, because once again, it provides us with statistical data in terms of that. I hope for each of you, like it did for me, to encourage you. You got to find a way to be able to give to yourself first. And by God, if you can fit in, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of an exercise, and that's the thing about it. It didn't say this in this report. Now I'm being subjective now, right? I can just tell you, you don't have to do 30 and 40 and 50 minutes or 3 hours. You don't have to do that. I mean, we see these ads that come on, and they have all these people on there that look like they've never eaten a day in their life, right? And it looks like that's all that they do all day long is just exercise. That's not ideal. That's not ideal for most of us. I mean, when you have jobs, careers, businesses, families, elders to take, there's no way you can do all of that, right? I mean, that's not even realistic. But I can tell you, a 15-minute concerted, focused effort in terms of exercise every single day, you'll be amazed at what that will do for your mental well-being. Just 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes. I mean, we've been on here having this conversation longer than 15 minutes already, right? And so if you can chart that out at some point, right? At some point in your day, I'd encourage you, challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. Do it for a week and just see how you feel. Do it for a week and see if there's any change, any positive change that does not occur, right? That you don't feel better, that you're not going to be more energized, that you're not going to be, in terms of the stimulation in your brain isn't going to be greater, which means you'll have greater patience with all of the other responsibilities that you have, including that family member, right? And so the other aspect about this that I found very intriguing in terms of talking about, dementia. As we know, many of our family members who, are in that upper tier of, 80 plus years of age and that sort of a thing, we understand that dementia, often is an aspect that is present, right? And so, when I saw this today, I kind of had a thought about, going into next week, we would be just discussing some other things, but I think with the timeliness of this article, I think maybe we should have a conversation about dementia, right? How many of you are dealing with that? How many of you out there have family members that you're taking care of that are suffering from dementia in some form, whether it's Alzheimer, whether it's Lewy body, whether it's temporal lobe? How many of you are battling that? Because if you are, then that only means the complexity of what you're dealing with every single day and being a caregiver has now just exploded exponentially, right? That means the weight of what you are carrying, the weight that you're carrying now supersedes to a whole nother level, right? Beyond just caring for someone that may be in a scenario where, it was better for them to come to your home and reside with you as opposed to stay where they were. If there is a neurological issue there, of the family member that you're taking care of, it's a whole different ballgame, family. And so I want to talk about that. I want to. I love to engage with you on that in terms of to see, because that's a whole nother level when we talk about not having resources, whether that's governmental resources, different agencies, whether it's nonprofit, whatever. Um, for most of us, it just seems very difficult to be able to find those level of resources to help us out. So I think going into next week, we may discuss that a little bit, in terms of looking at some data as it relates to dementia. What percentage of our people are being impacted by that, and what percentage of you or maybe dealing with that on a day-to-day basis in terms of caring for that caregiver who may be suffering from some form of dementia. So I just wanted to share this with you, family. I was just blown away when it came across my desk, and so wanted to be sure that I touch base with you on it. And once again, I hope you got as much excitement out of it as I did. I certainly hope that if for those of you that have been battling with trying to find a way, you need to do something to kind of, give yourself a reboot, a recharge, but you didn't know exactly what. Hey, listen, I hope this article helps you out. I hope this article, will serve as some sense of a stimulus for you to start that process, and just let's see what it does for you. Let's see how it will positively impact your day to day exchanges with your family, with your coworkers, with your employees, with your spouses, with your children. Let's see how that goes. And so just want to share that with you, family. I hope everyone has a phenomenal evening. Certainly hope you're prepared for a great week ahead of you. Let's also remember all of those people. I also got another call early. The first call I got this morning was from a guy who I consider like a brother to me, and he informed me that he just literally got his power back on. I didn't realize, but in Augusta, Georgia, the storm came through there and really wreaked havoc. And I didn't know that they had been without power for 4 days. And so I would ask you to please join me to keep all of the hundreds of thousands, or if maybe still millions of people who are still suffering, from the consequences of either not having their power on still yet, or the consequences of not having their power for days or weeks. And so, and then I I don't know. I haven't seen any TV today, but I noticed earlier this morning they were speaking about it appears as if another tropical storm is in the Gulf heading back to Florida again. So who knows? That thing may turn. It may, you know, go and don't hit the States at all, or who knows? Typically, when those storms get into the Gulf of Mexico, crazy things happen. But let's certainly, those of you who are believers in a higher source and in a higher power, I would ask you to join me in terms of keeping all of us in prayer as it relates to that, because we don't know where that storm, the one that's out there now, we have no clue where it may end up, right? So with that, always just keeping your fellow man in mind, I think is also just a good source. It's a good way in terms of when you're providing the universe with that level of energy. I'm a firm believer that the universe tends to give back to you and within good measure. So anyway, family, won't hold you any longer. Have a great evening. Have a phenomenal week. Look forward to speaking to you again as we go into another episode in the Doctor's Corner. But until then, peace, be well.